Hi, Barry Eaton here, and welcome to Radio Out There. Well, past lives, always something very, very popular and of great interest. And my guest this week, Brad Burkholder, who's had a very interesting career and a lot of interest in the past. Where the Spirit led, and we'll talk about that in this edition of Radio Out There. Brad, very nice to meet you. You're on one side of the US, and I'm on one side of Australia. So here we are linked
right.
up.
A world apart.
Now, Brad, you have a very interesting background. A retired English professor, an academic, who is now into the whole area around past lives. I think you're the very first academic at such a level that I've talked to about past lives. Most of them think, oh, that's a bunch of rubbish. So there we are. So you've written a wonderful book, Where Spirit Led, and we're going to have a talk about that. So tell me how it all started. It started with a spirit guide, I believe, Ramoth. Is that right?
Yes. This began in 1997 when I had a colleague at work who was probably more into sort of the New Age movement than I was, although I was open to it. And she found this channel, Yvonne, and recommended her to me. I booked a session with her. It's through her that I met Ramoth, the spirit. And all it took was 1.5 hour session, and I was hooked. I've been a student of Ramoth ever since.
Right. Do you feel that you were waiting subconsciously for something like this to happen?
Oh, yeah. I realize now that I was always a rather spiritual person. But as I was growing up, that term didn't mean anything. People didn't talk about spirituality. They talked about religion. And so I went to church with my parents. But by the time I was about the time I finished high school, I just felt that church wasn't doing it for me. And so I set out basically to try to find some answers on my own. And I think if you look for God, God finds you. And so a situation occurred that led me to the psychic or the channel. And as I said, all it took was one session. I was hooked. And I've been a devoted student since then.
It opened the door. I think a lot of people had gone through a transformation. I did myself. And when you had that opportunity, you wake up and you find a whole new world out there waiting for you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I also found that there were people who were a little afraid of what I was doing.
Really?
But family members, people like that were concerned of what I was getting into. But to me, to find answers that are hidden from most people is just the greatest exploration of all. And I've wholeheartedly embraced it.
Yeah. Oh, fair enough. Look, I totally empathize. I think I've been doing this sort of work now over and above my normal broadcasting, communications and whatever for well over 30 years. But I think half my family still think I'm a bit wacko, you know. So,
oh, yeah, join the club. Yeah.
So now, tell me about Ramoth, because a very interesting channel, I guess. Ramoth, I presume, is a spirit guide who came through Yvonne, and you have found a total link there.
Yes. Yvonne had been channeling about 8 years when I met her. And actually about 3 or 4 years after I met her, Yvonne and I became married and had a wonderful marriage for quite a few years. We did split up about 2 years ago, and really we've remained very good friends, and ever since. I we still maintain contact, talk to each other once or twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly I haven't lost contact with Ramoth during that time. And actually, I'm talking to him more frequently now than I was in the last few years of our marriage, probably.
So you still have to go through Yvonne to talk to Ramoth, is that right?
Usually. Now, I'm not her only client by any means. And but I probably am the most devoted of the clients. I've probably taken the, other people come to Ramoth for advice. I consider myself a student of Ramoth.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm the only one who's written a book. You could put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, do you know much about Ramoth and his or her history?
I know this. Ramoth is a very old soul.
Mm-hmm.
Ramoth is not currently incarnating on Earth, but has had many incarnations on Earth. In some lives, I've actually known Ramoth. To the best of my knowledge, that like in biblical times. I don't know that I've known him on Earth more recently. But he's a very wise spirit, very light oriented, a very good teacher, a remarkable teacher, and I owe so much to him.
Yeah. Now he has helped you look very much into your own past, and I guess you've had a very strong lineage of past lives there. And you found a lot of links with other people as well. We can talk about that later. But going back, did you, as an English professor, when you found a link to two very well-known UK poets, did you find that a little bit sort of, disturbing or strange? Or did you question it, that you were Yeats and Keats?
A very odd thing was that a troublesome relationship brought me to Ramoth.
Mm-hmm.
I was seeing a woman. I was very uncomfortable in the relationship, but I couldn't give her up.
And this is what referred to in the book as the woman.
The woman, yes.
The woman.
The woman. And it turns out that in those lives that you mentioned, she was there. And I was hopelessly in love with her in both of those lives. And in one case, I would say I was obsessed with her for about 50 years. I had been seeing her for a year or so when I met Ramoth, and in fact, she became a client as well. We even had sessions together once or twice. Eventually, that relationship resolved itself. We went our separate ways, which I think is good, because the similar relationship had hounded those other two men whom I was.
Yeah. Did you find it strange, though, that as a now retired English professor, that you had a link to two top poets?
That I had a link to two top poets struck me as strange. Not only that, but they were my two favorite poets.
Oh, fair enough.
And
so
furthermore,
is that in itself enough to question it, do you think, at a deeper level?
When I learned first that I had been one of those men, I broke down completely. I was sobbing. I was weeping. There were tears all over my face. It felt like some sort of dam inside me had burst, and all of this emotion was just pouring out through my soul. From that moment on, I never doubted the truth of it. And suddenly, in a flash, it made my life make sense. these were men I had studied in high school, and it was I had many deja vu experiences in English classes in high school when we studied poetry. I remember, for instance, my senior year in high school, we studied English literature, or British literature would be a better term. When we got to a poem by Wordsworth, his Intimations on Immortality Ode, I'm sure that in this life I had never encountered that poem, but when we read it in class, it was as familiar to me as my own address and telephone number were.
It really resonated.
Yeah. And so many of the poets, the Romantics, and many of the early 20th century poets, particularly the British poets, as soon as I heard their names, it was like a remembering rather than an introduction to them. So I had poetry in me. That's why I majored in English. I didn't really understand it, but I knew from, I was in high school when I realized that my destiny was to be a poet, which I think is very strange because you just don't meet many people in American society who say at a very early age, I'm going to be a poet.
Yeah. That's very true. Very true. So it's a fascinating thing. So you feel you've learned a lot from connecting with both of those poets, because you've now started writing poetry, or you're not now, but you've started writing poetry yourself, and there's quite a lot in the book. So is that an unrealized aspect of yourself, do you think?
You mean, is poetry an unrealized aspect of my present life?
Yeah, but also the
your question?
follow-on from both of those poets. Is there evidence of their work in your work?
Oh, I think so, but probably because as I was coming through college, they were the poets I kept going back to. They were the ones who became my role models. And then, in the United States, the graduate work in creative writing is kind of a big thing. It's sort of a a big industry within the higher education.
Cool.
So interestingly, when I was at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, working on a Master of Fine Arts degree in creative writing, I went to my poetry instructor's office to talk to him about the poems I was writing. And he made a connection between my work and that of one of those poets that you mentioned. Now, 20 years would pass before I would find out that I really had a connection. But once I learned it was very logical. I suddenly understood all of the choices I'd made in life, even the relationships I'd had with various women, because they were all in his life too, just in past incarnations.
Fair enough. Now, let's move on to some of your other areas in the past. You've had a very colourful past, if I might say so. You've gone back to biblical times, and also you were at Camelot. Now, I found that, whoa, Camelot. So tell me about Camelot.
I found that pretty remarkable too.
Because it blew me away, I'll tell you.
I considered Camelot mythological.
That's right. I think we all do.
Yeah. So I did not bring it up. Ramoth did. And also, I discovered that at the same time, there were two men who were among Yvonne's clients. They were also students of Ramoth at the time. And the three of us we were acquainted, but not, we weren't fast friends at the time. Although Ramoth arranged for us to become very good friends. All three of us were at Camelot. And then we discovered that one of Yvonne's female clients was also there, and that Yvonne herself was there. And
So it was
so
like a
eventually,
gathering of the clan.
yeah. And we were all related to Arthur himself. The three men were nephews. Yvonne was a niece, and the third woman, whose name was Leslie, was actually a granddaughter of Arthur, daughter of Mordred or Midra.
So none of you were knights at the round table then?
Well, yes. Yeah, but you know, there's. I suppose some people would run down the street yelling about their past lives. I've always tried to be fairly discreet about it. Yeah, it is true. The three men, one of them was a priest. The other two were knights of the Round Table.
Can you drop a name or two?
One of my friends was Bors, and I'm told that I was Gawain.
You were Sir Gawain.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big haul, isn't it? Sir Gawain in one life, a couple of poets in another life. We're on a very colourful lineage here. So,
well, we did come to bad ends. You know, we came to early and violent ends.
Yeah, well, a lot of them did in those days, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you also write about the fact that there was a link between King Arthur and Constantine.
Yeah. Yeah.
That as a student of history myself, mainly archaeology, but that whole area of Constantine and King Arthur, nobody I know would have put those two names in the same sentence.
There is some scholarship to back it up. And I can't tell you, but I was actually told it years ago by my uncle, who was a tremendous scholar. He himself had been an English professor for a while, and then he got out of teaching and went into other things. But to him, the study of literature and the study of history were inseparable. He had uncovered that Arthur himself was said to be related or descended from Constantine, and that it, of course, Constantine was in. He was in Britain at one time, and so was his son. So I don't know, you know, whether it's through the son or just through Constantine. But Arthur was several generations removed.
Removed from there. Yeah, but Arthur, there's always controversy whether Arthur was a real life person or just a legend.
I know that I've been, and not only I, but several of us have been regressed hypnotically back to that time.
Right.
In the regression, I saw him. I know that I was wearing a garment with black and yellow stripes that went down the arms on the last day of my life in that existence.
Right. So did that mean something historically? The black and white stripes?
No, it's just what I saw in the regression.
Oh, right. Okay. No, I thought there might be some kind of a royal link or something in there.
Well, that would be nice, but I don't know. I don't know what the meaning of it was. It was just a fact that I know. I know also that Arthur had a pennant, a little flag with an eagle on it.
Okay, fair enough. Now, as I said, you've had a very colourful past life lot. You're the only person I've ever met, regressed. I've written past life books myself, and I've never met anybody who was famous. So there we go. But you have also a life, or we had a life, around about the time of Jesus.
Hmm.
So tell me a bit about that.
I was told that I was a leper who was healed by Jesus.
Okay.
Um, uh, so I
There were a
knew
few
him.
of them around, weren't there, at the time? He
Yeah, yeah,
performed
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of
quite a few.
healing,
Yeah. Um, uh, I mentioned five people, two other men, a woman, and Yvonne.
yeah.
We were all there.
Mm-hmm.
We were all there. Uh, all of us were with Moses when he led the Israelites out of Egypt. We were together then. We were together in Camelot. Most of us took part in the American Civil War in the
Mm-hmm.
1860s.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You were all,
but
as a band, traveling through history together.
very, very much, very
Now, back
much.
to
And
Moses, because there's a lot of information around that Moses never really existed, never led anybody out of Egypt at all. There's no archaeological records or whatever. So you're saying that you were there, you were able to be regressed, and you firmly believe that you were part of that whole uh, exodus. Yeah.
absolutely, yes,
Uh-huh.
absolutely. Um,
Well,
Ramoth
why are there no
has,
historical records? You're a
well, it
an
was a long
academic.
time ago.
Yeah, you've
It
written a
was
lot
a
of
long
stuff in the
time ago,
Bible as well.
and we do. I mean, we have Exodus. That I suppose is, or to some people, is considered a historical record.
Yeah, that's right. But there's still been no archaeological evidence about the existence of Moses and the fact they
Hmm.
wandered around for 40 days and 40 years or whatever. Anyway, that's just an interesting side point there that just jumped into my mind at the time. Uh, When you were in the lifetime as a leper in Jesus, you were also related to Lazarus, apparently, a cousin or whatever. Is that right?
That's what Ramoth said.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, I get my information from Ramoth. I believe Ramoth because of two things. One is that sometimes there's almost a visceral feeling of the truth when he tells me something that I didn't know. And another thing is that so much of the information that he's given me over the years has been very practical stuff about, it would be better if you did this than did that.
Right.
And so I follow his advice, and I have it caused me to thrive in many ways. I
Right.
didn't
So he's
become
always been a
wealthy.
great help for you.
A great help, yes.
Mhm.
And so I've come to trust him.
Right.
Because and plus I've had some pretty profound spiritual experiences while under his tutelage.
Mm. So him coming into your life was no accident.
No, no, I don't think it was. I think it was something that was very much meant to be.
Hmm.
And early on, he told me that I would be writing a book about what I learned from him.
Hmm. Right. Fair enough.
Mhm.
Fair enough. Now, you and Yvonne and a couple of others had a trip to England, didn't you? And
Mhm.
uncovered some interesting things there. Tell me about that.
Yeah, the five of us who had been in Camelot together
Hmm.
all took a trip to England together.
Hmm.
We went through. We were in the southern part of England, around Stonehenge,
Glastonbury,
basically
all around there.
from Salisbury on west about as far as Bath,
Hmm.
and in that area. And we had one deja vu experience after another. It was we referred to it as a vision quest because
Right.
it really was very much that.
Yeah. Does something jump out now as we talk?
Excuse me.
Does something jump out from one of those deja vu moments?
Oh, um, we had an interesting experience in Bath Abbey, which is
Mm.
a very ancient.
I know it
I'll
well.
say ancient. Yeah, very beautiful building.
Beautiful.
We went in there. One of the men I was with became very upset. He was becoming emotional. He didn't cry or anything like that, but I could tell he was upset. He had a memory of a woman he had loved in a past life who threw herself from the abbey's tower and killed herself.
Hmm.
Um, it upset him because he knew this woman in present life. He knew who she was. And she was something to him in this present life, but in that life she had ended her life, um, and he was upset.
Yeah.
And I found that I had a strong impression that Richard II had been in that same building. I don't know. I haven't verified
Yeah.
whether there's any record that he was ever
It
there.
was there, yeah. This whole area brings into the whole subject of unrealized karma, that we're all here to work on our karma from past lives.
Absolutely.
Tell me a bit about that, from your point of view.
Well, I suppose I'm a poet because of karma.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not a well-known poet. I'm not a widely published poet. I won't even say that I'm a good poet, but
You're
I'm
modest.
I make no claims, but I do write verse, and I've been doing it for a long time, for
Hmm.
well over 50 years, and I have uh, I think I've written some poems that are pretty good, but but I'm not going to be remembered as a poet, or at least I don't think I will be, unless something miraculous happens.
Mm.
Um, but I'm a poet because of my past lives. I don't know if that's karma or or something more subtle than karma.
But there were certain
I
unrealized areas of karma in your life, whether it was through Yvonne, whether it was through the woman, and various other
oh,
things like that. I'm only mentioning that because it's the same for all of us. I mean, we all have
mhm,
past life links. I've done a lot of work in past lives, and the people that are most predominant, either in our life, in a what we perceive as good or not, doesn't matter because they're there to help us and we're there
mhm.
to help them as well. So it's just a fascinating subject. But the other karma I wanted to talk about was the fact that you have listed so many people that have gone on in your book, historical figures, that I was sort of quite fascinated by the fact that so many figures in history have reincarnated in other historical figures, like Harry S. Truman was Ulysses S. Grant. Um, Also, we had Roosevelt was George Washington. Elvis Presley was Rudolph Valentino. The big one knocked me around was Field Marshal Montgomery was formerly the Duke of Wellington, who defeated Napoleon. So that is a very interesting karma because from my own research, I found that I've been told from the other side that those people then don't always go around talking about themselves as historical figures. For them to come back once again into figures of uh, international prominence, shall we say,
Mhm.
I was quite amazed. So, talk to me a bit about that.
It's don't think I haven't thought about that. I've spent the last 25 years or so thinking about that.
I'm not
Uh,
surprised.
yeah,
It knocked me
yeah,
around when I
yeah.
read your book.
What it seems to me to be
Mm.
is that some of the people I know, not myself so much, because I'm always a little bit on the periphery, but some of the other people in my group have been far more prominent in the world than I've been. Um, if I had been the greatest poet of all time, that's still kind of a small thing compared to kings and emperors and great generals and people who actually change history. I think there must be several, I'm going to say families of souls
Oh, there's
in
all
different
soul
parts of
family,
the
yeah, for
world.
sure. No, I've written about that myself. I think it's well
Uh-huh.
understandable. We
Yeah,
all have soul families and extended soul families as well.
yeah, yeah.
No
Well,
problem.
what I think is that maybe I'm sort of on the edge of a group of people whose purpose is to lead, to shape history. And what I've probably been is sort of an observer and maybe, in some cases, a recorder of some
Hmm.
of those events. I mean, I'd suspect that I've been, some of the people who wrote down, something like a bard, who wrote down the exploits of the king and was sort of marginally part of the king's entourage and so forth. Um, and so these people tend to be at the points where history is being made. Maybe they're at the points where history is being directed by an outside force, and they're the instruments being used by that force.
Hmm.
Uh, I, I, I suspect that you could find various other groups of people who have uh, played important roles century after century in history as well, and that those people probably are part of a group similar to the group that I'm in.
Mm. Because also, sort of about the bard, well, that Yvonne channeled Shakespeare. That's quite interesting.
She did. Actually, I channeled Shakespeare as well.
Really?
Uh, he came to me first.
Hmm.
It happened when there was a film made in the late '90s called Shakespeare in Love.
In love, I remember it well.
Very, very well known movie.
You
I
didn't have
went,
kind words to say about that in your book.
yeah, I mentioned that in the book,
Yeah, but you
and
didn't have kind
and
words
where
about
this,
it.
the movie upset me.
I
I,
know.
I went to see it and I walked out on it because I was very agitated, and I didn't know why until I left the cinema. I got in my car, and these thoughts started running through my head. Pick up the pen, and I said, I can't pick up the pen. I think I know what you want, and I can't do that. And he said,
Mm.
pick up the pen. So I went home. I picked up the pen, and I wrote a Shakespearean soliloquy that is included in Where the Spirit Led. Um, it was uh, the first few lines of a play that I wrote, which was a full length 2-act play written in iambic pentameter in Shakespearean English, uh, 1900 lines or so of iambic pentameter.
Right.
And actually, at the little community college that I taught at, there was uh, a theater teacher. He was just an adjunct teacher there who had Broadway and Hollywood experience. He had written plays, he had written film scripts, he had written for TV shows,
Mm.
and he was an actor. And I showed him that soliloquy, and he said, "You finish the play, and we will stage it here on campus." And that did happen.
Mhm.
And I was very happy, gratified to see
Yeah, I
that
bet you
occur.
were. Writing in iambic pentameter, not easy. I'm a trained actor. I trained in Shakespeare and all sorts of things. Did a couple of performances rather badly, but it's a very different kind of language, isn't it?
Well, the iambic pentameter is not difficult for me. As soon as I learned what it was, I could do it.
Right.
I learned, in high school, I learned the four basic, the meters the iamb, the tropaic, anapestic, dactylic. Soon as I learned what they were, I went home and I was doing them.
You were right.
I did find that most people can't hear them. I taught poetry writing for many, many years on the college level, and I very seldom had a student who could actually hear those cadences and could actually write what we call foot verse. But I could always do that.
Mm-hmm.
The Shakespearean language, well, I had never found it as foreign as some of my classmates did, but still, it wasn't something that I normally spoke. And yet, I wrote that whole play in a month, and it was the easiest writing I ever did because, I never knew what I was going to write until I put the pen to the paper, and it just flowed out of me.
Maybe Will was helping you there for sure.
Well, it was, I was channeling Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And that's what Raymond said. I met with him as frequently as I could during that time. Then afterwards, when Yvonne and I, a year or so passed, Yvonne and I started dating, and she began channeling Shakespeare occasionally, and he would come through for my benefit.
Right. And he comment that he was the one who wrote all of his works of Shakespeare, because there's been controversies for a while. I know most leading performers and producers all say, do not say that it was somebody else, but there's always been that doubt cast around that Shakespeare didn't write, because his education, how did he write about Rome? How did he write about plays like Othello and whatever, without ever having even left the shores of England? So there's a lot of controversy.
That's true. But, in Stratford, he went to there was a school there. He went to it. Who were his teachers? They were men educated at Oxford and Cambridge.
Yeah.
So he had good teachers.
Stratford, a wonderful place.
He had good teachers.
Yeah.
But also he had something else. He had that divine connection to the other side that great artists have. And that's why when people say, Edward de Vere wrote Shakespeare's plays, I say, no, God would not have given those plays to Edward de Vere. He gave them to William Shakespeare.
So there was divine intervention there.
Oh, I think so. I think in all great work there is.
Yeah, fair enough. But you also talk about some of the soul connections between Chaucer came back as Spenser, Shelley, Milton, and T.S. Eliot. And Edgar Allan Poe came back as Robert Louis Stevenson. So this whole area of the lineage of souls flowing from one lifetime, one talent to another is there that you've explored in your book. I found that quite, well, at first I was bewildered. I'm thinking, I wonder why. So here we are, you're giving us a few answers on that one.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that talent follows a soul from life to life. It sounds strange, I know, especially, but I've had many conversations with Ramoth about athletes, about sports in America. I'm a big fan of American football. Ramoth has explained to me that many of the great football players, let's say of the 1920s, lived out their lives, came back. And when I was growing up, I watched them play football myself. Yeah. And some of them are back on the field now. And so that there are people who have probably reincarnated 3 times playing professional sports around the world. Yeah.
I think we have to bring that to the average person, because I've had a lot of past lives of my own examined, and I was involved in wars as a soldier and all sorts of things many times until my very last life, where I died in the trenches in France. And I was told that I've done all of that now. I've cleared my karma and everything like that. So we can't all be famous, but we all maybe have that kind of flow from one lifetime to another, a link, whether it's soldiers or whether it's politicians or poets or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's a very
Yeah.
interesting point to have a think about.
Well, everybody, I suppose, hopes they were someone famous in a past life, but fame is really
Most people won't.
overrated. It's
Oh,
grossly overrated.
totally, totally.
What's important is, did your soul make progress?
That's right.
In where the Spirit led, I pointed out that there was Lord Byron, who actually reincarnated as Oscar Wilde,
Mm-hmm.
who reincarnated as Dylan Thomas. Okay, three, and before that had been Christopher Marlowe, and who knows, prior to that. Okay, all of those people left poetry behind, and they left their names behind too, because their names are forever attached to the poetry they wrote.
Yeah.
But I also know that soul in the present life. And whereas every one of the men I mentioned was engaged in self-sabotage, and while they were all famous writers, but they died sadly. That they had troublesome lives because of poor choices that they made. Well, I know that soul. Dylan Thomas came back. I know him. Just as once upon a time I knew Shelley. Once upon a time I knew Marlowe. I knew Byron. I know I didn't like him, but I know that I knew him. But the man I know now is not a writer. What he is, though, is a very, very successful person, in that he has put a stop to all that foolishness that ruined his lives in the past.
Yeah. Well, all summed up in been there, done that, move on. You write a lot about the soul. I'd like to talk more about that, but unfortunately, time has beaten us. Brad, thank you very much. Where the Spirit
thank you.
is available now, and a very interesting read. And thank you so much for being on the program this week and giving people a lot to think about. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure.